screen starts glowing and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the is a good score.
Hey listeners, welcome to the 230th episode of The Goods, a film podcast. I am joined, as always, with my dear friend and compatriot and podcast co-host, Mr. Brian Terrell. How are you doing today, Brian?
Hey Dan, doing all right. Just the two of us.
That's right.
Twin flames.
Twin full, yeah.
Wouldn't be the same if it was just one.
So, I asked Brian to watch a 2025 film. I don't know for sure if we've watched another film from this year yet, Brian. Do you know if we have?
We went and watched Adam 17.
Oh.
Not Adam 17. Mickey 17, but we watched it with Splitting Adam.
I'd like to imagine there's a 17th version of that Adam from that movie.
Yeah, I guess what? He only got to like 6 or 7.
Right. So I guess this is our second film of this year. We usually get a couple in of the current year, each year on the podcast. Like to mix it up every now and then, you know how we do on The Goods, a little bit of everything. So this film, Twinless, has maybe not been the film that got the most buzz out of any movie thus far this year. In fact, I really had not heard of it until I saw it recommended on Letterboxd. So a host of the Alternate Ending podcast named Brennan Klein, he's done a lot of other podcasting for different pods, and he writes on his own website and such. He reviewed this film. He gave it a very strong rating. He said a couple things about it that made me curious. And I was like, I just hadn't heard of this movie. And then I saw somebody else recommend it in a Discord that I'm in and said, really enjoyed Twinless. And I was glad I hadn't read too much about it before I went to go see it. So listeners, that's what I'm going to open this with, which is that the premise of this film is two people meet at a morning, and that's MOURNING. A recovery group?
Right, like a grief group.
Yeah, support group, maybe is what you'd call it, for people who are twins, whose twins have passed away. And I've seen a million dramedies about people in unusual scenarios. I have this term that I use when I write reviews. I say a film is well observed. I use this as a backhanded compliment for movies that often they premiere at festivals like Sundance or South by Southwest, that they're nice character portraits, but they leave me wondering, why did you want to tell this story? What was the narrative thrust to tell this story? Like maybe some things happened, but maybe it's not clear. You know, there is value in just like giving us a character in a situation and doing it well. That's worthy, I guess, just doing that, but sometimes you want to know why. And when I started this movie and we started a support group with two people opening up about their lives, I thought, okay, I could do for a good, well-observed little drama here. But this has some real tone swings. I was surprised a couple of times, and we'll talk about it in this episode. Again, I went in knowing pretty much nothing about this movie. So listeners, I would encourage you to go check out this movie. My rating will ultimately be on the positive half of the is it good scale. Spoiler there, but enough to be a recommendation to just go out and check it out if you like, I don't know, just something that's a little different. And so anyone else is listening, we're going to do full-on spoilers for this movie. We're going to talk through all those tone swings. And just every now and again, I like to open it up with I think this is a movie worth going in blind on, and I think that's how I feel about Twinless. I feel my experience was enhanced by the fact that I went in knowing nothing about it. So
Yeah, it's very spoilable. It's got kind of a psycho paced 20 minutes in twist that recontextualizes everything.
I wasn't even going to say that, Brian. Going knowing nothing, but yes.
Well, you already said full spoilers past this point, so we've passed that point.
So that's a good point. It was past the point. Okay, yeah. So
Support group. You said support group. What I was thinking early on in this movie was Fight Club.
good call.
Because it's these young men going to a group therapy, and that's the jumping off point also for Fight Club. And then the title is Twinless, and you got these two men. And I just got from the way that you set it up, the last movie that you set up like this for me, of make sure you don't read anything about it, was The Substance. Where in that case, it was like two people who were the same person. And so that's what it turns out to be in Fight Club also. So I was wondering, okay, are these two guys going to be one guy? And it's not exactly that. But that's what I was, in the first 15 minutes, that's what I was wondering.
So I talk about this with my wife, where you say, I don't want to spoil the twist. But then you're looking for a twist. You're trying to guess a twist. So that's why when I opened this episode, I wanted to frame it as there's some tone shifts. Go in, you don't necessarily need to know what's going on with it,
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think, yeah, so Brian, you were hunting for why did Dan want me to not know anything about this?
Right. Of course, I was also thinking about one of my favorite movies. Actually, Fight Club also one of my favorite movies, but I was thinking The Prestige, where the twist is twins also.
Oh, interesting, yeah. So before we dive into the plot, and which we definitely are going to talk about, let's talk about this filmmaker. So his name is James Sweeney, and this is his second film. I had never seen his first film. I had actually heard of it because it had stumbled across my radar a couple of years ago. I think it came out in 2020. And both Twinless and Straight Up, which is his first movie, actually star James Sweeney. So he wrote, directed, and starred in both of his movies. Straight Up, I watched this week. This was my second time watching Twinless. I watched Twinless again this week. I also watched Straight Up for the first time this week. And I think this director's got something going. I think he's got a really interesting voice and style.
And he's quite a young guy.
Yeah, he's got to be in his 30s. I could look up his age. And what's interesting is, Brian, if you ever go watch Straight Up, it does less of surprises than this one does, but it's actually got a lot in common with it because it kind of interrogates blurry boundaries and people sort of not really revealing their true selves to a partner. And in that case, it's kind of more framed as a rom-com than anything else. And it stars Katie Findlay along with James Sweeney. You may or may not remember Katie Findlay if you are a loyal Goods listener, going all the way back to Premature, Brian. Do you remember Premature?
Yes. I wouldn't have been able to pull an actor name out, but yes.
She's the brunette best friend / love interest in Premature. And so she's in that other movie, his first movie. And it even uses a couple of the same devices. It has a split screen thing, and we're going to talk about the split screen scene. So anyways, point being, this is a second movie. His scripts are very dense with jokes that just kind of whiz by you. I've seen the term used, screwball pace, to them. And I think that's even more true of his first one than his second one, the one that we're going to talk about. But I think he's a funny writer, and I think he's a solid director.
Yeah, there were a lot of funny lines. And it leads sometimes to tonal whiplash.
Yeah.
But what this guy reminded me of, and that I was just thinking the whole movie, and is not going to mean much to listeners who don't know our little circle of friends, but this guy, Sweeney, what's his first name?
The director's name is James Sweeney.
James Sweeney reminds me a lot of my brother's radio co-host, Isaiah. He looks kind of similar. He's got, like a skinny build, and he kind of ethnically ambiguous. I think he's like, I don't know, is he half Japanese or something?
Yes, so that actually also comes up in his first movie, where he has a white mom and an Asian dad. I think he is half Asian or something, yes.
Right. So, but a similar energy, and Isaiah has also dabbled in filmmaking. So I was thinking of him this whole time. That's it. That's my contribution. I'll drop a video that I was thinking of.
Yeah, you shared that with me. If it's the one I'm thinking of, about a competitive Jello eater, which made me laugh until it made me too grossed out to keep watching.
Genius independent film, one of my favorite cinematic shorts.
But I've met him a couple times, and yeah, funny guy, nice guy, good to talk to, and I can see he's got some of that same energy where he's like very smart with lines, like he's always thinking one step ahead of you. So Twinless also stars Dylan O'Brien. So Dylan O'Brien plays, I guess, a double role in that he plays pretty much the main character, Roman. It's kind of split between Dennis and Roman. And then we also see him in a flashback playing Roman's twin, a character named Rocky. So it's Roman and Rocky. And then I guess probably the third most important role is this young woman who I didn't recognize. Apparently she's in the House of the Dragon show, I think, the Game of Thrones spinoff that I never watched. Man, did that show spoil my goodwill at the end. But this actress, it's one of those Irish names where you look at it and you're like, ain't no way I'm pronouncing that one right. Aisling, last name Farnciosi. I think she's like Irish Italian or something like that. I don't know. But I Googled it and it's pronounced Aisling Franciosi. So Aisling Franciosi. She's a co-worker of Dennis's at the start of the film. We also had Lauren Graham, who I recognize as the mom from Gilmore Girls, as Roman and Rocky's mom, who appears during the grieving process. I was laughing about this rewatching today because, like I said, this week I also watched his first movie. And it's a recurring conversation point in the first movie that the characters really like the show Gilmore Girls. And now the mom from Gilmore Girls is cast in his second movie. That's got to be intentional.
There you go. Building that industry clout.
And like inside jokes where like the word gets out about your appreciation and stuff. Yeah. But also, apparently, Katie Finlay appeared in this. I had my eye out for her, but I didn't recognize her. I think it's probably a pretty small appearance, but apparently she's in this as well.
She could be at the party.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the last thing I'll say about this before we dive on in. This premiered at Sundance, I think I said. Raised some eyebrows when it was classified in the dramatic category at Sundance. Because what you would think from his first movie is this guy's just a comedy filmmaker. And yet this got placed in the dramatic category. So everybody was thinking, what's going on here? I think it's got comedy elements, but I think if I were to like do a breakdown between comedy versus dramatic is the right bucket.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know what to put in our spreadsheet, so I was waiting for you to say that.
It's a little bit of everything. Yeah. I'll tell you what my final designation may be at the end. So, but let's dive into Twinless. So, this movie opens with a scene where we do not see, but we hear a car accident where somebody gets hit by either a bus or a car, a vehicle. And then we smash cut to a funeral, which of course leads us to believe that at the funeral for the death of the person whose accident we just heard the previous scene.
Right. I want to say something here is that every shot in this movie is composed very intentionally. The spacing of everything in the mise-en-scène. It's almost always symmetrical. It's not always, but often it's like looking flat on at something that is horizontally symmetrical.
Yes, and You probably don't need me to tell you who, of course, this made me think of, which is it's kind of a lightweight Wes Anderson without the what's the word? The preciousness of Wes Anderson's, the artificiality of Wes Anderson's compositions. I kind of feel like the Wes Anderson influence in indie film has faded a little bit. Like you don't see too many new directors coming up who are trying to do a Wes Anderson but their own thing. This kind of has a little bit of that, where it's like you can tell even some of the colors are very controlled, very graded, where you're like, okay, this kind of has a Wes Anderson-y vibe. It does a little bit of like rotating around the room and looking at the characters, and yeah, a lot of like the symmetrical stuff. Good blocking, like just the shape of the frame and where the characters are and where, I don't know, I think it's pretty well directed.
Yeah, it struck me over and over how each shot was set up. And like the sound is good and the colors seem very intentional and the lighting. You know, it's like I could tell it's a lower budget film because it's just a small cast and not a whole lot of locations, but it's got juice. I think that's a term you used recently. Or you used it about Coffin Joe. You've used it a couple times recently of like, this guy's got stuff.
Yeah. Vision, talent, energy.
This first shot, though, where you don't see the bus crash, the camera's like stuck looking at a big pane window of like a shop on the street. And so you're just staying there. You're hearing things around it. I've noticed that's kind of a thing lately of movies where they intentionally don't show you the thing. It's like Skinamarink or The Zone of Interest. And we got away from that pretty fast. This movie is not like that.
No. I kind of know what you mean. It's kind of like an art film device of like building the suggestion of something existing in your head.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple other movies that use some version of that for sure.
But what I noticed is staring at this window. I mean, if you're an indie filmmaker, you want to avoid big panes of glass because you're just going to see yourself and you're going to see the camera. So they had to set this up so that they didn't get any reflections.
Good point. I didn't really think about that. So you were impressed. You're bringing your director's vision to this. I mean, like, okay.
Yeah, I was trying to unlock it. I was thinking, okay, what is here that I'm supposed to get that I'm not supposed to have spoiled?
Again, we at the funeral where we see Dylan O'Brien, who's Roman, and he's next to his mom, like we mentioned, Lauren Graham, and all these people are just coming up and hugging and passing on their condolences to Roman. This one person at the end, this young woman with kind of like a dark hair bob, gives like a extended impassioned hug to Dylan O'Brien. And the thing about Dylan O'Brien is he just looks like a guy, you know? He just looks like a generic, handsome, short-haired brunette guy. Tell me some other like initial impressions of this guy, Brian. Kind of jock-y.
Yeah, I think part of his character is that he's supposed to be kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like his vocabulary is limited.
And he gets like, he doesn't always pick up on sarcasm or jokes or references.
Right.
But he ends up being a very complicated character because he's not just one thing. He's very interesting. And I want to talk a little bit more about this as we go, but he's kind of got this like mean streak, but like he can't quite control his anger sometimes. And we don't quite know how much of that is just like his emotions running high from the grief of his twin brother dying, because that is who the funeral is for his twin brother, Rocky. And how much of it is that he's just kind of like a little bit of a lunkhead, meathead, who he talks about it, how he used to get into fights when he was a kid. So it's not just that. He's got this kind of angry streak to him, but he's also got this wholesomeness to him. Like he's just it kind of goes with the dopiness that you're talking about, Brian, where he just, as a contrast to the violence, he's got this gentleness to him as well.
Right. And throughout this movie, I was trying to figure out who the main character was, because this guy definitely has main character energy, and he gets first billing on the poster and stuff. But Sweeney very prominent, and I think really is the one who's got the arc going on. I don't know. It's up for debate.
I think it's a pretty good overall two-hander duet, if you will.
And on the poster, they're wearing these Bert and Ernie shirts, basically. Shirts with narrow stripes.
And why do you bring that up, Brian?
I don't know. I like I said, I was trying to figure out what the mystery was. So this means something. No, they do eventually. The shirts show up in the movie, but I don't know that there's very much to it. But
yeah.
they got the stripes. They kind of look like tubes of Lifesaver candy.
Well, the Bert and Ernie thought I'll follow up on here in a second. So what we see is Roman he's not in a good place after this death and this funeral. He's arguing with his mom a whole lot. He's like cleaning up his brother's stuff. And, you know, my dad passed away a couple years ago. And it's not fun to do that. And it's even harder to do that in some ways when it's like unexpected. You know, it's just like this person left this thing in this state. They didn't think that it was the last time that they were going to. We didn't have time to think about like, oh, we need to start putting this stuff away because this person is in hospice or anything like that. Like if it's abrupt, like it was here. And like when my dad passed away, then there's extra grief in like every single thing that you encounter and clean up. It's like, oh, yeah, he's still paying for his Netflix account. We got to cancel his Netflix account. Oh, he had this sticky note about a work to do item on his computer. That was like something that happened. That just struck me. Like when we got home after my dad died, it was like, oh, he was like literally had work stuff out from like when he was away. And it's, I don't know. It's very strange. And I never really felt angry the way that this character does, but like I kind of empathized with this feeling that you just can't control the reality. And it's like every time you encounter something new, it's like a reminder of the abruptness of it.
Right. Yeah. That must have been difficult. And your dad was not very old. But I was thinking in a recent episode, you were talking about shows when our parents were young, like Seinfeld. Like, my father was not young when Seinfeld was on. I don't know.
Well, he was a young adult, right?
A young adult, yes. So I assume that's what you meant.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Our parents' shows, yeah.
My parents were older than your parents. But...
Yeah, my dad would have turned 65 in about a month. So, let's see, Seinfeld came out in 1990, so he was 30 when Seinfeld debuted. So maybe I was stretching it a little bit.
Right, but I suppose that's fair.
Yeah, I guess the shows that were most formative on me, and maybe this is just I was watching TV differently, but were like when I was in high school and early in college. I don't know. But anyways, yes, so his mom encourages him to go get some help, and the way what he does to get some help is he goes to this support group that's all people who have lost their twins. And at this point, it's almost like this is just like a wacky setup almost. You know, it's like black comedy. It's like because they're like riffing on the prospect of losing a twin and like, oh, my twin stole my boyfriend and stuff. And I'm like, what is this movie? What is going on right now?
Like, how common is this predicament that they need a group?
Exactly. But there he meets Dennis, who is the James Sweeney character. And one thing we learn pretty quickly is that Roman is straight, but Dennis is gay. But Roman's twin, Rocky, was also gay. And this is apparently, they talk very briefly. I actually wanted to know more about this. They talk very briefly about epigenetics, which is basically like, even though sexual orientation is genetically defined, I think is the common scientific consensus. I'm not 100% on that. And I would love to be corrected on this.
I've heard mixed things. We may need to bring in a subject matter expert because, yeah, it sounds like there is not a consensus. So anything that we say one way or the other is potentially biased or just wrong. I had a biology professor in college who said something interesting, because I think you could take it multiple ways, but he was like, well, if a womb has produced multiple female babies, multiple sisters, and then a boy, the boy is statistically more likely to be gay. And that could be because of the hormones that build up in the womb or something. But what he didn't say is that then he grows up with 4 sisters, and maybe that contributes to it. It's like, it could be a variety of things. But also, if there is a gay gene, it seems like, wouldn't that then, how does that propagate then?
So, again, I'm not a biologist.
No hard answers. We're not oncologists. We're not geneticists.
And I don't mean to diminish the authenticity of anyone's experience or their true identity in saying any of that. But it is kind of fascinating, because I'm pretty sure we're to take that Roman and Rocky were identical twins, right?
Right.
And one of them was gay, very gay, and one of them is very straight.
And what Dennis says is that his dead twin was straight. So the flip-flop.
So that kind of is like a mirror situation and helps set up like a connection between Dennis and Roman. And they kind of hit it off. They go to dinner together, and they're very different. Like Dennis is kind of like stereotypically got that slight effeminate nature about him that you would see as like stereotypically gay. He's not muscular.
Right. He's a twink.
And also like very sharp-witted. He always has a comeback.
He's always making cracks.
Yeah.
He's always kind of backhanded.
Yeah. It's hard. He's not always authentic. Whereas like Roman is a very earnest person. Very direct. And so they make an interesting contrast, but I think both because, they each have lost someone who is like the other, they kind of fall into an easy rapport because they're both used to having someone who is like the other, and they kind of help each other. And in particular, we see this from Roman's perspective. Like, he's missing a companion in his life. He's single. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He's lonely. And Dennis is there and understands loss, And so they're kind of hitting it off. And then we get the flashback, Brian. This is at about, I think, like the 20-minute mark. We don't even know right away it's a flashback. It cuts to a different scene, and it's Dennis eating alone. So that's part of it. It's like, you're just like, okay, we were in one scene, and then boom, we smashed to this other thing. And why is he eating alone? Just a minute ago, he was with Roman. And then we get the title, like the credits and the production company and the title card, Twinless. And then, again, we're watching Dennis, and then just like he has this awkward encounter with someone in the restaurant, and then this guy just walks up behind him and starts talking to him. And he's almost like he's like a spirit or something. Like they don't even like have an awkward hi. He's just like, follow me. Like he's a I don't know, a ghost or something. But he is real. So that is like, okay, who is this? And then you're looking at this guy who's just like, hey, come with me, come talk with me after you had that awkward exchange at the restaurant. And then you're like, wait a second. This guy right here, he's got this big, goofy, campy mustache.
He's Roman with a mustache.
But he's Roman. He's the same actor. And then you're like, wait a second, hold on.
So did we jump forward in time? Then he grew a mustache? Or did we jump backward in time? Or what is happening here?
And it is indeed not Roman. It is Rocky. It is the twin, because it is a flashback. And you gradually start to piece it together that, oh, this is not, again, it's not Roman, but it's everything we've heard about Rocky. And now we're actually seeing it come to life. And you're like, this is bizarre. Wait, he knew Rocky? He never mentioned that. What's going on here? And their conversation turns into a hookup. I was surprised, rather explicit.
It's explicit, an extended explicit gay sex scene in this film.
Yeah. Which apparently, to the extent that this movie has had some buzz other than like, hey, it won this award, apparently somebody leaked a handheld cam, probably like a phone cam of the gay sex scene, and it got out and the wrong people heard about it. They're like, what is this filth, this pornography being shown at Sundance? And people had to respond to it. I mean, it's just one scene, you know? But yeah, it's one of the more explicit gay sex scenes I've seen in movies. You just don't see that as often as straight sex scenes. Red, White, and Royal Blue is one that I had one that caught me off guard, in part because that one is just like otherwise just like a not exactly Hallmark comedy, but just kind of a breezy romantic comedy. And then there was this other one, and now I can't even remember what it's called. Starring and written by Billy Eichner, who was in Parks and Recreation. All right, I got to look up what this movie was. Bros, that's what it was called. Bros had one too. Getting off track here.
No, I've been thinking about it this week, and like there is also a straight sex scene, but I feel like that too focuses on the man's ass.
Well, I will say that James Sweeney is gay. That is how he identifies, as is homosexual. So interpret that how you will.
One of the top reviews on Letterboxd is that James Sweeney wrote, directs, and stars in the film where he gets to bottom for Dylan O'Brien.
Right, because it is Dylan O'Brien playing Rocky.
So it could be a Quentin Tarantino sucking Salma Hayek's toes case.
Yeah. And just one more thing on Rocky is not only does he look like Roman with slightly different haircut, it's not quite as short, and he's got the big goofy mustache, and he's like dressed more trendy. He's just kind of transformed in his demeanor. Like he looks like him, but he doesn't seem like him. Like he seems like a different person, which I thought was kind of incredible. Like I really believed I was watching a different person, not the same actor.
Yeah. Really good example of acting.
Yeah.
It's like Guy Incognito on The Simpsons. This man is my exact double.
Homer?
Who is Homer?
I love that scene. So after their hookup, we see Dennis texting, pathetic texting Rocky. Like, hey, you want to get dinner? How about tonight? And then the next day, okay, well, how about tonight? And the next day, okay, how about tonight?
Double text, triple text.
And then we follow him to his office, and there's kind of two characters in his office we meet. One is this Asian woman who, like, I don't even really get this character. I think the gist of it is, like, he always knows details about her life, but she keeps saying, oh, I don't like to talk about my personal life. But, like, he always has something to say about it. And then the other one is this young redheaded woman who is extremely friendly. Her name is Marcy. She's the receptionist. And this is the woman, Aisling Franchosi. And he's like asking for advice on how do I get this guy to text me back from both of them. And it's kind of an interesting first impression because particularly of Marcy, because she too seems kind of like ditzy, kind of dopey herself. She's like, oh, who knows? Maybe he's just not replying to you because there was some sort of mix-up. You should go find him. If that's what you think. You know him better than me.
He's just not that into you.
I was going to say that too.
The Drew Barrymore character, yeah. He's like, well, you know.
Right, that's what Marcy's saying. And then the other one is saying, oh, he just doesn't like you. Just move on. Which is exactly the point of he's just not that into you. So anyways, he's trying to get Rocky, which of course now we know is in the past because Rocky died. So eventually he figures out where Rocky lives and he like pretends to be a UPS guy, I guess to like spy on or bump into him or something like that. He's getting into like weirdo territory here.
Yes, he's devious. He's a creepazoid.
And he sees Rocky walking out of his apartment with another guy. And of course, this is devastating for Dennis because he really felt that he had, in just that one date, fallen in love with Rocky. And one thing we gather that doesn't get dug into too much, it does a little bit, is that Dennis, the James Sweeney character, the one who's now pining after Rocky, he is a deeply lonely person. And I think he felt this connection with Rocky and really felt like it was something special. It was a meet cute. It was a moment of destiny for him. Whereas, like, it seems for Rocky, it was just a hookup, you know?
For Rocky, it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
As M. Bison says in the Street Fighter movie.
But it honestly did seem during their hookup scene, the explicit one that we were talking about, that they were like talking a lot and sharing a lot about themselves and were like very open with each other. And yes, did have like a kind of natural rapport with each other. So Dennis, having seen Rocky with this other guy, kind of follows him and then gets in his car and is driving along as Rocky is walking. And then when they're at a crosswalk, he crosses and Dennis like loses his cool and he accelerates. And for just a split second, I'm like, oh, is he going to hit him? And then no, oh no, he doesn't hit him. Okay, I thought this was going to be the moment he gets hit. That would have been something. And so what instead happens is Dennis gets out of the car and he starts saying, Rocky, why didn't you call me? And Rocky's like says to the other guy he's with, he's like, all right, give me a second about this. And Rocky steps forward and says, okay, buddy, the thing is, and then boom, here comes the vehicle and hits him. It's like the beat in Mean Girls. Isn't it Mean Girls where somebody gets hit by a vehicle, or is that a different movie?
That sounds right. Yeah, and the thing is, before the flashback happened, Dennis had a line where he was like, it was me. But then he kind of couches that in, I was the reason that my twin died.
Yeah, and he comes up with the whole story for that, right? So what have we now learned? We haven't learned the full extent of it, but we've learned that, first of all, Dennis knew Rocky. And second of all, Dennis actually was essentially the cause of Rocky dying. I mean, he didn't hit him, but he was yelling across the street to Rocky. Rocky stepped out on the road and got hit by a car and died. And this is like not known to Roman.
Unbeknownst to him, but knownst to us.
And this, I was like, my jaw was hanging open the first time I was watching this. Because I had kind of set you up to expect a twist, Brian. I hadn't expected a twist. I was like, oh, this is just like going to be like a little weird drama character sketch thing. And now we've got like this full-on conspiracy, like a secret identity. And it runs layers deep.
Yeah. Because the final bit of this flashback act is it catches us up to the present, and it shows that person with the like Andy Warhol wig, that bobbed haircut, was Dennis at the funeral. Yes,
he was dressed up as a woman, the one who gave like the nice long hug to Roman when Roman started breaking down crying at the funeral. It was him in like I feel like there's some movie that does this, that I was trying to place what it was, like kind of obfuscating your identity with like big glasses and like a big fake hairdo, you know?
Yeah. And then, of course, he's at the support group, but we learn Dennis does not have a twin. That's all made up too.
Right. It's like even sicker than that. And I was really struck. I very satisfied and struck by some of the details that are there that you don't necessarily recognize the first time through. And just like slight little echoes, hints of what it is that if you're not looking for it, you might not know it's there in the first 20 minutes, that are kind of cleverly placed there. So one is like when he's walking into the first group, there's a moment, this is Roman I'm talking about, when he's about to walk into the group for the first time. He kind of like looks over his shoulder, like, did I just hear something behind me? And then we later learned that, yeah, he did hear something behind him. It was Dennis, who was just following him around the whole evening and just walked into the place that Roman happened to walk into and like on the spot made up the story that he also had a dead twin. But then now he's made up this lie that he has a dead twin and successfully hooked in Roman to like be his friend, to open up to him. They eventually talk about, oh, we should get groceries together since we both have lost this twin. And so he's like fabricating all this. He goes home and he's like photoshopping family pictures to like take him from one picture into another picture, be like, oh, here's me and my twin. But really it's just two of him and he's had to do this elaborate thing. And so I guess, yeah, you say Dennis is the villain. Dennis is the bad guy. Dennis is the manipulator. But it's a little more complicated than that too. Because Dennis is a deeply sad person.
Does that make it okay, Dan?
No, it doesn't make it okay.
If I'm deeply sad, can I get away with something like this?
No, it does not, Brian. But it's not purely villainous. It is a means of coping.
They make it understandable. And so this is a story where a character is lying to ingratiate themselves with another character. And so, Dan, I am going to ask now, have you ever seen The Talented Mr. Ripley?
No, so you mentioned this, and I know a bunch of people who really like this movie, and if we had one more day, I was probably going to watch that before this. I have not seen it, but I actually probably will watch it soon.
Yeah, so the premise of that is that, I think it's Matt Damon, that could be wrong. There's this character, this young man, who gets mistaken for somebody else. And then he starts lying, just masterfully, like Catch Me If You Can level lying, to ingratiate himself with the friends of this guy that he was mistaken as being. And I would have to revisit it. It was a couple years ago that I watched it to see how exactly it played out. But the whole thrust of it is that he ends up telling elaborate lies to ingratiate himself with this couple who are Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow. But it's like clear that his designs are primarily on Jude Law.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's like, it's pretty gay. It's not as explicit as this one, but like it leans that way.
That's an interesting one. There's a couple others that I was thinking of too.
I was also thinking Dear Evan Hansen.
Yes, that's a good connection as well, because that one also deals with a dead person and like kind of lying about your relationship with the dead person. Another one is, and it's almost like, I can't even say the movie because you're basically giving the movie away, but the movie Saltburn, which came out a couple of years ago, which got really bad reviews, but I found to be just like trashy, silly fun with like lots of crazy twists and outrageous moments, and is also very gay. Involves Barry, how do you say his last name? Like Kagan or something like that?
Keegan or something?
Yeah.
The Irish guy?
Yeah. Playing a poor kid who meets someone at a boarding school who we gather right away he is infatuated with. And then we also gather is like shaping his story on behalf of this guy to some effect. And it goes, that one's another one that goes some places. But the one, here's where I will say what I was most thinking of. And this is some personal bias, but I have been watching a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies the past 6 months. And this, you mentioned this is kind of a psycho-y moment. The way that we kind of get this total left turn at like the 1/3 mark. It's a little earlier than the 1/3 mark here.
I was wondering, and something I want to talk about when we rate is, did the reveal happen at the right time in the runtime?
That's you're leading on to exactly what my point is going to be, which is that Hitchcock prefers suspense to surprise. That's one of his things. Suspense over surprise. So he tends not to have like, oh my gosh, finales where everything comes together and you didn't know all this stuff. And you're like, it was the butler all along. We just didn't see it. It's like usually the viewer knows the approximate thrust of the story by the middle of the movie. And this actually frustrated me about Alfred Hitchcock before I kind of got on his wavelength, because it's a little bit like, okay, that could have been a really cool reveal. And now I kind of know information that would have been maybe intriguing if I hadn't known what it was. But I came to appreciate it more and more. There's still a couple of places where I'm not quite sure if it made the right choice, if it made the story better, or if it would have been better as a surprise. But the one that I wanted to talk about was Vertigo. Have you seen Vertigo, Brian?
I have to watch Vertigo.
Okay.
I've watched like the first 5 minutes. I watched the scene where he gets spooked when the guy falls off the roof.
Right. The quintessential dolly zoom in all of cinema, perhaps. And I actually, funny you mentioned that, I've been reading this book where French New Wave critic and director Francois Truffaut interviewed Alfred Hitchcock like for hours and hours and talked about every single movie they made. And he talked about the dolly zoom. And Hitchcock said, we had this vision of something like essentially the dolly zoom, but to get it to the precision that he wanted, the cameras weren't yet like light enough and controllable enough, like in the 20s and 30s when he was first starting to make movies. And then later they got better, and he was like, all right, now I can get it like pinpoint. Like it just, the person holds steady in the frame and the background warps around them.
Yeah. That's funny. It's not easy to do. I was part of a film project like last year, student film project, but they wanted a dolly zoom and we tried for like 2 hours and we didn't get it.
Oh man. Well, it's hard.
You gotta be, if you want it to work perfectly, it's gotta be precise, and it's not easy. There's a scene in this movie that we're gonna talk about where the precision to do it is insane.
Right.
And we're gonna talk.
But the last thing I'll say about Vertigo, one more dolly zoom thought, and then we'll go to Vertigo thoughts. Dolly zoom is that things like it had been used, but Hitchcock often gets credit with like doing it exactly in the way where the subject holds completely still. So what a dolly zoom is, in case you don't know, listeners, is where you both move the camera and zoom at the same time.
Yeah, so it's the camera pulls back while you're zooming in, or the camera pushes in while you're zooming out.
Right, with the effect being that the subject, usually a person, stays the same approximate shape and depth, but the world around them changes because if you zoom and pan or push, I guess, at the same time, then you can essentially keep the character the same size, but the perception of everything else will change. One of my favorite effects that you can use in a movie, and like that's when I know a director knows ball, if they're doing a dolly zoom. I'm like, all right, this guy's in it to win it. Like when we watched Varsity Blues, they have that dolly zoom pretty early on, and I was like, okay, I'm locked in. Let's watch Varsity Blues. I don't want your life, but I'm here.
Yeah, my favorite one is probably the one in Jaws.
That's a famous one.
When the shark comes up and Brody is sitting on the beach and in his little lawn chair, and you get a great dolly zoom on him.
Another one that's got to be a candidate for the greatest is in Raging Bull, the boxing movie by Scorsese from I think 1980. In one of the big fights, the boxer is like looking in. I haven't seen the whole movie, but I've seen the scene. The boxer is looking in on his opponent, and I don't even know, like it must have started like 30 feet away and like got to like 3 feet away, because the dolly zoom just keeps going and going and going. Like the background distorts more and more and more, and you're like, how could they possibly still be doing this dolly zoom?
Raging Bull was Scorsese, right?
Yes, yeah.
We got to do some more Scorsese movies.
Yeah, that would be fun. There's a lot by him that I haven't seen that I would like to see, and that includes Taxi Driver, which you've mentioned many times.
That's right. It's got a lot in common with Bucket of Blood.
Gotcha. All right, now to my Vertigo thoughts at last. Circuitously. So, Vertigo, I'm not going to spoil Vertigo, but there is a similarly timed... It's not quite as early in the movie as this one is, but it has a very similar effect. And it also involves a dead person, and it also involves like lying about an identity. And I was like, this is almost like a mirror image of the Vertigo revelation dump that we get when we hear about it. It's the same thing where we kind of get it from like a sort of flashbacky perspective. It's done differently in Vertigo. which is a movie I adore, in case that was not clear. And I think there's a lot of Hitchcock in this, because now the rest of the movie, we don't have the surprise. We have the suspense of like, how is this all going to play out?
Right. When's the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
Because we know that Dennis has got these designs.
Right. Another one I was thinking of, it's not exactly the same, but it's Stranger on a Train. And have you seen that one, Brian?
I haven't seen that one. It would have been my next pick if Train Month had gone another week. I would have paired that one with Throw Mama from the Train with Billy Crystal and the sinister mama from the Goonies. We would have, if we'd gone another week on Train Month, that would have been my next pick, is double those up, because apparently Throw Mama from the Train is largely inspired by Strangers on a Train, which I believe the premise there was that these two strangers meet and they're plotting how can they help each other commit a murder. Is that right?
That's the gist of it, except one of them is like a deranged lunatic and one of them is just shooting the shit. Being like, my life would be so much easier if this person in my life was no longer alive. And then the crazy person takes that more literally.
Say no more, say no more.
Yeah, I mean, it really is that. And then like what happens from there? Another excellent movie. But you kind of have that because you have these two guys with very different, well, and also in Stranger on a Train, one of them is gay coded, which is very often in Hitchcock. The insane or evil person is coded as having some sort of sexual abnormality or dysfunction.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to talk Rope someday. I want to see a Muppets do Rope where Bert and Ernie play the Leopold and Loeb killers.
But it's kind of an interesting effect because I feel like most modern movies go for the twist ending. You know, it's like it all builds to like, oh my gosh, this is what it was the whole time at the end. But by doing it at the 20-minute mark, it very much changes the composure of the rest of the film. And so then we're now seeing these things from like a fresh perspective, and we milk some real tension out of it. Like at one point, Roman and Dennis are grocery shopping and they bump into the guy who was the one that Rocky had been talking to, walking out of the apartment with. And Roman says something along the lines of like, oh, hey, you knew my brother, didn't you? Maybe he was at the funeral or something. And he's like, yeah, I was actually there when he died. There was this crazy guy yelling at him. And Dennis is right there. So you're like, oh my gosh, this was a very Hitchcocky moment for me because you're like, I'm so suspenseful right now. Like, is it going to come out? Is he going to recognize him? I really liked this.
And Roman is like, well, you're gay and you're gay, so it's a perfect match.
Right. Well, no, because it gets more than that because Dennis is like freaking out and doing a fake accent and trying to shoo the guy away. And Roman's like, why'd you do that? I was just talking to him. And Dennis says, it's because I was attracted to him. And then so now Roman's like, aha, now I got to find a way to hook these two up. It'll be a way to pay back all of the kind things that Dennis has been doing to me. Except, of course, the closer they get to that guy, the more likely it is that the truth will come out. So it's very clever. And then we get to see more and more of Dennis talking with Marcy. So she's the coworker, a redheaded coworker. And again, she gives off this like very kind and ditzy vibe. And she also like talks about how she doesn't really know anyone.
Yeah, I was thinking of Marcy from Peanuts. I don't know. She's prettier than Marcy from Peanuts, but she's got basically the vibe that she's giving out is that she has not had a lot of romantic success.
And she even talks explicitly about that. For whatever reason, she kind of latches on to Dennis. And it's like, life's hard. Let me tell you about my life. So we hear a little bit about her. And I watched this movie the first time with my wife, Katie. And I was like, why do we keep showing these conversations with Marcy? Because we're not really learning anything about Dennis that we don't know. She's like, yeah, I guess that's kind of true. And I was like, I wonder if Marcy's going to play into this more. And sure enough, she does. And so now let's talk about the Halloween scene, Brian. So I think this is the best scene in the movie, personally.
This scene is mind-blowing and definitely elevates my rating for the whole thing. And I want to talk about this. So, yes, launch us in.
Right. So the gist of it is, again, Dennis and Roman have been hanging out a lot together, including one scene I did not mention, which is that they go to this hockey game together. There's like a lot of jokes about how Roman is into sort of like quaint stuff like minor league hockey. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm from Moscow. And he's like, what are you talking about, Moscow? You're not Russian. He doesn't say that. He's like, Moscow. He's like, Moscow, Idaho? Is that what it is? It's some like Moscow in some state. But anyways, so they go to a hockey game and they get accosted by these like young guys who like yell some gay slur at them as they're walking together. And this sets Roman off. And Roman gets in a fight with these guys and like really beats them down, which gives us a few key revelations. It's like, one, he does have this violent streak, also this very defensive streak, and he's very sensitive to putting down someone because they're gay, which kind of aligns with like this emerging vision that he sort of had this complicated thing with his brother where like, okay, he's my twin and he's gay. Like, what does that say about me? And we're eventually going to learn he also kind of like took that out on his brother to some extent. Like he was insecure about this.
Yeah, one gets the sense that he didn't beat up the bully because the bully called him Roman gay. He's like defending Dennis.
Yes.
But maybe it's a little of the former, but yeah, that he's kind of had this development since his relationship with his brother.
But also he's almost like beating himself up when he beats up the other person because he in the past had been very negative about Rocky's sexuality. That's something that kind of emerges too. And like insecure about that. So when he beats up these other guys, it's a reflection of a lot of different things going on. And then they have this exchange in a hotel room, which is like my favorite individual bit of acting in 2025 so far, which is like Roman's like, that stirred some stuff in me, man. And Dennis is like, well, pretend that I'm Rocky and tell me like how you are feeling right now. And it reminded me of the monologue in Pearl, that it just keeps building and building. And I kept being like, oh my God, is this going to keep going? And it just keeps going and going and going. And by the end, he's like crying and shouting. It's like in, I'm sure you've seen that clip of like Will Smith losing it when his dad leaves him in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I mean, I've seen that episode.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of like that. And you really get the sense of like, there's really complicated and ambivalent feelings that Roman has about his brother. And when you abruptly lose someone who you have complicated and unresolved feelings about, you cannot resolve those. And so that just makes it more and more painful. All right, so that sets us up for the Halloween scene. So they go to a Halloween party together, and I think it is Marcy's, because Dennis is like, oh, I don't think she has too many friends. There probably won't be that many people there. And then they open the door, and it's just like a jam-packed party. There's hundreds of people in there. And what they're addressed as, and this is the Bert and Ernie scene, which, by the way, when you said Bert and Ernie, I was like, oh, is he going for the gay illusion there?
A little bit. I mean, so, okay, have you ever seen Avenue Q, Dan?
No.
So, okay, Avenue Q is a Broadway musical that's a parody of Sesame Street. And there are Bert and Ernie characters in Avenue Q. And in Avenue Q, the Ernie character is straight, but the Bert character is gay, and he is pining for his roommate, Ernie.
Mm-hmm.
So, very similar to the dynamic here.
Oh, and all of this is kind of surfacing something else, which is like, Dennis appears to also be holding out hope that he can, like, essentially...
He's got a second chance. This is Rocky 2.
And, like, he can help Roman realize that, in fact, he is in love with him too. Like in some ways they're acting like a couple. They even go to this party in a couple's costume. And what they are, they're Sims. So that they dress in like very corny, bright colored sweaters. And they have the little Sims diamond thing on top of their head. And this is a reference to Roman plays The Sims, which I found to be a very funny and quirky little thing. Like not something you would expect of like a sort of bro-ish guy.
And, like, he's got his brother there in his Sims world. So, like, this is his way to keep his brother alive.
Yes.
Is he's got this little dollhouse where it's him and his brother.
And then he, like, keeps accidentally having his brother die in The Sims. And then we see a face of Dylan O'Brien crying because his sim Rocky just died. Oh, it's very clever. And so they go to this party, and almost immediately they get split up. Roman goes to get a drink, and when he goes to get a drink, Dennis is waiting for him, and somebody comes to say hi to Dennis, and we get the sense that like Roman is still trying to find a gay guy to set up with Dennis, and this is like one of his friends or something. And meanwhile, Roman, when he goes to get this drink, bumps into Marcy, who is like dressed up like a princess and looking especially pretty. And she like had been, as soon as this happened, it clicked in my head where this movie was going. It's like, oh, like they designed Marcy to be like the exact person to match with Roman, like the exact perfect person, very wholesome, very kind, very patient, but looking for someone who's kind of like a red-blooded all-American type like Roman is. And they just immediately hit it off. And he's like kind of rambling, but she's like digging his energy. And he's a very handsome guy, of course. He's still an O'Brien. But the way that this is shot, Brian, as you know, is as soon as they split up, it's like the frame just, it's almost like they're both two cameras shooting the thing. It's like seamlessly one shot splits into two shots, a split thing.
Exactly, seamlessly. So the shot suddenly splits into two shots where the left side of the screen is showing one character's perspective and the right side of the screen is showing the other character's perspective. And then they deviate here at this party where suddenly this wedge character has been introduced, and Roman has this growing attraction to Marcy, and Dylan, of course, who is the puppet master, not Dylan, Dennis. Dennis is like on the periphery. He's like sneaking around. He like has a conversation briefly with the gay character that he's ostensibly set up with, but of course he's after Roman. And so he like comes up the stairs, and then once they reunite, the shot comes back together.
Right.
And it just perfectly rejoins. And this would have been so hard to do.
Yeah.
But I guess what I've thought about it all week, and what you would have to do is you just have to have an identical first frame and last frame. So you have the shot mapped out for what Dennis's shot is going to be, you have the shot mapped out for what Roman's shot is going to be, and like those are two takes. And it just, the camera moves differently each time, except you've super specifically marked down what is the starting point and what is the ending point. And if that matches for both cameras, you could do this.
Right. And then you all have to always have Dennis be in the right side of the frame when you're shooting Dennis, and Roman on the left side of the frame. Have you seen 500 Days of Summer, Brian?
I have not.
Okay, so that has another variation on a split screen thing. It's not exactly the same. It doesn't have the same technical thing, but it has the same, like, the two moods are opposite on the two split screens. That one's actually really clever. What it is this guy is going to a party, and he has a vision of, like, what's going to happen romantically with someone. And so we see it split, and on the left is what he wants to happen, and in the right is what does happen. And you see like the same beats from the party at the same time, but going very differently. But he's the character in both of them. So that one's a little bit different. But I was thinking of it because it's got like two energies on the two different things. And this moment is just so good because here in Twinless, because a lot of things are happening at once. First of all, you're like, oh, Marcy and Roman is going to be how this. And then you're like, wait a second. Marcy knows a lot about Dennis. Dennis has spilled stuff to Marcy. This could get messy. Maybe it's Marcy, not that other guy who was at the scene of the crime. Oh, wait a second. And it just kind of sinks in that like this thing that Dennis has set up, even though it actually has been like good for Roman and like exactly what Dennis wants, is not a sustainable thing. It's a false thing that like is going to crumble, and you start to see the cracks here. At last, it's starting to break down, and it's just, how is it going to break down?
Yeah. Not Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul has a scene a little like this, where you've got the split perspective as a relationship is coming apart.
Gotcha.
Here, it's more that a relationship is coming together, and that's problematic for our ostensible protagonist. This guy, this director who's inserted himself into this other person's life. I actually think this scene undercuts itself a little bit because it has cuts. There are cuts during the party and like time elapsing. I think it would have been way more effective if it was a continuous shot on either side of the frame.
Oh, like the camera just follows them without an edit and then it merges back together. That would have been interesting.
That would have been amazing. Still very, very good. I think that would have been even stronger.
Well, the one thing that I really liked about the end of this shot, and I remember noticing it when I was first watching, I was like, I imagine this is going to sync back up, but how? And it does like long takes on both Roman and Dennis at the same time. And it's like, but Roman isn't seeing Dennis. So how is this happening? And then it zooms out on both of them, but more so on the Dennis one. And then you realize that we are seeing Dennis from a mirror somewhere where Roman can't see him.
Right, he's like standing at the bottom of the stairs, and Marcy and Roman are at the top of the stairs like it's the room or something, and they're like not quite canoodling, but having this intimate connection at the top of the stairs, and I guess Dennis is in the Denny role down at the bottom.
But it's really clever because they're both staring at the camera, and you're like, how could they both be staring at the camera if this is really the same shot? And then you realize it's because it's a mirror in the distance that is making us be able to see Dennis. And I just thought it was very visually clever, the way that this wrapped up too. But yes, so here we also get a little bit of an about face on Marcy, because like in the next few scenes, Marcy starts to be like, okay, what's going on here? Because first of all, like she gathers that Dennis is very covetous of Roman. And second of all, like Roman starts to let slip things that Dennis has said that doesn't really align with what Marcy knows to be true about Dennis. And she's actually the detective in the story. If this was a mystery story, she's the detective putting together the different clues and the pieces. Because like, oh, wait, I thought he said that he was going to study for the LSATs. But no, he actually wants to be an illustrator, is what he told Roman. And oh, wait, I follow him on Instagram, but he's never mentioned a twin before. Let me scroll past. Oh, but he told Roman that the twin works for the IRS. I'm going to call the IRS and see if I can get in touch or learn about this dead twin. And then it's just growing and growing. There's one funny scene in here where they do a double date. This is like very early on after the Halloween party. They do a double date. And the one guy that Roman had initially wanted to hook Dennis up with doesn't work. So who's there but the guy who was at the scene of the crime, the other gay guy when Rocky died. So now this scene has got just a lot of tension and suspense. And it's like, oh my God, is this going to go wrong? But no, it's again all about Marcy figuring it out. And Marcy corners Dennis and says, okay, you got to tell Roman what's going on. That she basically like wheedles it out of him. You don't have a twin. And he even, I think at this point he confesses that he had met Rocky or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so she's done a lot of extra homework.
Right.
She's really dug into this guy. But that said, a very cringy scene. There's a lot of cringing in this movie. And so the explicit straight sex scene, which again, a lot of lingering on Dylan O'Brien's butt. Like, while Marcy and Roman are having sex, they get a phone call, and it's Dennis. And Dennis is like guilt tripping them of, I'm so lonely, I'm so depressed, I have no Christmas plans. So then Roman and Marcy invite Dennis along for their Christmas.
Right. So they go to the Christmas, and here's where I will share something that Katie pointed out to me. And as soon as I thought about it, I was like, that's exactly right. I was just kind of filling in the blanks.
Okay, before you finish this sentence, I hope I'm not Dennis. I hope I'm not inserting myself into your straight couple life.
You mean in real life, Brian? No.
In real life, yes. I hope I'm not third wheeling this hard.
You never are, Brian. Not at all.
Okay, good.
I've never at all felt like, what is Brian doing here? He needs to get something together. No.
Okay, good.
In fact, it's the opposite. I'm like, I really want to include, I feel like I'm boxing Brian out sometimes because my default is I just stay at home and watch movies with my wife and play board games with her. So it's not at all that.
Okay, good.
I hope you don't feel boxed out by me.
No, I don't. I am happy with the amount that I am included, but I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, yeah. You're not a dentist, Brian.
Okay.
Unless you have like some ridiculous long con that I'm not aware of. That really would even trump what Dennis is doing here.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, this Christmas scene, we again see the mother character. And what is missing in this movie is Roman reconciling with his mom. All of his interactions with his mom are negative. There really should be Mom, I want to mend things. I want to close the loop with you. And if you could if Sweeney could have kind of tied that to Dennis sort of is a stand-in for Rocky and helps both of them kind of process that loss. I mean, I kind of think what he was going for, but he just didn't get all the way there. And I really think we were one scene away from that subplot working too, because that really could have emphasized that, like, yes, what Dennis was doing was obviously evil and manipulative, but like it did have positive effects in the sense that like it helped Roman and Roman's mom have some sort of closure because of Dennis sort of being a little bit like Rocky and all that. I don't know, being this other figure in their life.
I caught that too. It almost feels like it was a deleted scene or something.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of that in the first movie too, where there's like multiple suggestions that the Kate Findlay character has like some sort of trauma or something in her past, but like it hints that like 3 times and then never reveals it. So I was like, are we supposed to take that there was something or that there wasn't something? Like it's like you lay something out, but then you don't close the loop on it.
Okay, you said the Katie Findlay character. I thought we didn't identify the Katie Findlay character.
No, I'm talking about in the first movie that he made. Not this one.
Got it.
Straight up.
Got it.
It has another element. It has another plot where it feels like there was a deleted scene or like a last-minute script edit to kind of cut it out.
I see.
That's my one script note for James Sweeney is when you kind of set up these thoughtful subplots, make sure you close the loop on them. But Marcy basically says, hey, Dennis, you got to reveal it or I'm going to reveal it. And so Dennis arranges a weekend away with Roman. And they go to a hockey game. And then Roman comes into the hotel room after like going to the gym or something like that. And he's all sweaty. And Dennis is sitting there, half a bottle of scotch, meaning he already drank the other half. And just like slurring to Roman about, oh, you hate me, I'm the worst. And Roman's like, what are you talking about, dude? He's like, oh, you're so tired. Let me give you a foot massage. And Roman's like, I guess I could use one. And he starts to give him a foot massage. And Roman's like, oh, that feels good. Like in a way that is almost like he's moaning during sex. And then Dennis starts sucking on his foot, Brian.
Yeah. We're quickly crossing boundaries here.
Right. And this is kind of another like scene that has a couple of parts because he's kind of like, he's remembering his connection to Rocky. He's imagining Roman as Rocky. B, he's like putting it on the line. He's like, let's be us. Let's be romantic. You and me, Roman. And he's also just like lost control of his inhibitions because he knows his world is about to fall apart. Because he then confesses to Roman all of it at once in like a drunken slur. It's like, I don't have a twin. And in fact, I was the crazy guy who was yelling at Rocky, who I had hooked up with when he got hit by a vehicle. Was it a bus or a car? I can't remember. And then Roman like gets this like crazed look in his eye, and Dennis is like, please, let's move on from this. And then Roman just starts beating him. And like, okay, now we're echoing the scene where he beat up the guys earlier. And so it's kind of, again, coming full circle here. And he just like lays a wailing on Dennis.
Yeah. And so, Dan, let me tell you what I was thinking of at this point. Because this movie has got several scenes of two dudes in a cheap motel room. And I was picturing an alternate version of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
with a romantic subtext, delusional subtext.
Build up the gay angle between Steve Martin and John Candy.
That definitely would have been a very different Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Call it Trainless.
So then the next few minutes of the movie are kind of a montage. We see Dennis quits his job, cuts himself out of Marcy's life so he doesn't see Marcy anymore. Roman, of course, cuts off contact with Dennis. He storms off, and he seems to have this very healthy relationship with Marcy. Although we get a little bit of like what appears to be multiple months in the future. And it's not quite tension in their relationship, but it's like Roman is lonely even with Marcy, you know? It's like he's still got this gap in his life where this is exactly where a friend like Dennis would be a great person to have in your life. Someone who's not just your girlfriend, someone who's kind of weird, someone who you'll do dumb stuff with you and you can just like talk about whatever like weird Sims shit or whatever is on your mind. There's like some music that they both like, and it's like,
somebody could host a podcast with.
Yeah, so eventually the last scene of the movie is Roman and Dennis get a lunch together. And I couldn't quite remember, why does he have a broken arm? Is it from when he got beat up, or is it from something else? Didn't something else happen?
He said it was from something else, but I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah.
Because Roman asks about it. He's like, wow, did I do that? Because it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been months, right? And it's at this one sandwich shop that just they keep coming back to throughout the movie. I'm pretty sure it's the one where he met Rocky. And then it's where he keeps bringing Roman, where they just kind of hang out. And then this is where they meet again. And it's frosty at first. And they talk a little bit more. But what I didn't expect, Brian, you couldn't have made me predict this was going to happen. And not even the first time through, only the second time through. This last scene made me tear up. I got emotional. I didn't properly appreciate it until I had seen the way that everything in the movie had laid groundwork right to this one moment. Because basically, all right, when Dennis hooked up with Rocky in the flashback, he shares some things about Roman, which Dennis uses to trick Roman. But it's more than that, because what he does is he shares that, again, this is Rocky sharing with Dennis, shares that Roman was a great twin. He loved him very much. He was the good one, and he has no ill feelings towards his twin. And then the way that Dennis kind of reveals this, that like Roman had all these great things to say about you, and that you were the good twin, and that you brought a lot of light to this world, he can now share with him. It's the thing that Roman has needed to hear since the first scene in the movie when he's crying at the funeral with these unresolved feelings about his brother. And Dennis, by setting up this like fake, this lie, had been hiding all of that information. He couldn't share it because otherwise Roman wouldn't be friends with him, because it was all built on this myth. But now finally it's all out in the open. Dennis can share the things that Roman needed to hear from the start and finally bring closure on Roman. And Dylan O'Brien tears up a little, and I got a little teary, and I think this is a good last scene. I liked it. And what were your thoughts as this movie ended, Brian? I guess let me say that slightly differently. My wife asked me, so what do you think happens to them after the movie is done.
Right. Like, what's the next thing?
Because it's ambiguous. Are they going to go back to being friends? Or are they going to just move on, but have good feelings about each other? Is it going to continue to fester? Are they going to be best buddies or like on okay terms, but not hang out? Or like, what is it going to be? So I don't know. What was your take on this at this point?
Yeah, I was thinking about all those things too. And I think it's a good ending. That it seems earned, that this is where it lands, that they do reconvene. And I'm not sure what happens next. I would think they are on better terms. Like, maybe they're friends, but it would not get to the same point again.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to know the answer. I think this is a good kind of ambiguity because what really you did ultimately get closure on a bunch of different things by the scene, but you didn't like lay out an epilogue about exactly how things are. Like, it lets us imagine it and think about what the things could be, but not in like a coy, cheesy way. It's like the right amount of ambiguity. Sometimes I complain movies do either too much or too little ambiguity. I thought this was the right amount of ambiguity for the ending. And that's Twinless, Brian. Oh, I don't even know if I said this. Twinless. At first you're like, oh, they're twinless because their twin died. But then when we get that flashback, we realize, oh, wait, he is twinless in the sense that he never even had a twin. He has no twin. He is twinless, Brian.
Yeah, when we get that smash cut of the title card at 20 minutes, which, by the way, I just recently watched the Stephen King movie, The Long Walk, that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And that also has the title card at 20 minutes.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like a 2025 thing, I guess.
Does that also reveal a double meaning for the title?
Sort of. I would say The Long Walk has a double meaning, particularly in the book, but I think it's in the movie, that it kind of makes a metaphor that the long walk is all of life. Like, all of us are walking until we die. That's what life is walking until you die. And it's kind of the same thing in another Stephen King book, The Green Mile, because the Green Mile is the distance that you're walking until you die. But, like, the metaphor at the end is Tom Hanks can't die because he's, like, got the magic spell on him or whatever. He says the Green Mile can be so long. It's like life itself is a walk until you die. So, like Ray Bradbury had things that he latched onto, it seems Stephen King had metaphors that he latched onto.
But also, I also thought of The Walking Dead. How that's kind of like the real Walking Dead are these sad humans who have this much emptier existence now that zombies have taken over.
Of course, the Walking Dead Stephen King connection is, Frank Darabont or something? The guy who made the two prison movies...
Shawshank and Green Mile, right?
Yeah, worked on Walking Dead.
Gotcha. So, a couple of wrapping thoughts here, and then we can rate. One is... So, when you think about a movie like this, where there's like the straight man and then the crazy one who's like involved in deceits or is kind of unhinged, I feel like 90% of the time, the performance you're going to remember is the latter. It's the slightly crazy person. The person who's like, I'm thinking Strangers on a Train. I'm thinking even Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You have John Candy is the one you remember more than Steve Martin. Not this movie. This movie, I'm remembering Dylan O'Brien. I think his performance, I'll talk a little bit about it when I rate, but he leaves more of an impression, both because he has to do the double role and because he just kind of brings life to the straight man and like, I guess, double sense straight man. And like this complexity that he has and these weird, complicated feelings that come to the surface at the right times and the right amounts. So, yeah. But yeah, that's Twinless. I'm ready to rate, Brian. Did you have anything else you wanted to shout out before we went?
Let's dive in. I think I'll hit my talking points as we rate.
So Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating, toward a good, which is an 8 out of 8. So, Brian, is Twinless good?
I think it was very good, Dan. I'm going to give it the highest 6 out of 8, which we categorize as very good, almost on the verge of a 7. I don't know if it needed to get quite as explicit as it got, but it is very funny and like psychologically gripping also. And I'm excited to see what this James Sweeney does next, because he's a young guy, he's got a lot of years left in him, and this is creative and it's thoughtful. And the compositions of all the shots are so cool, particularly that central scene of the fractured perspective. I think that could have even been better if they had thought through it in such a way to make it single shots on either side. But, like, very well done. And just flexing. This movie is a flex. So I'm glad that you introduced me to it. Where are you at, Dan?
So a couple of thoughts here. So one is I compared it to Hitchcock, and it really did give me a little bit of a Hitchcock energy because of like you have this sort of layer of like one character knows thing and another doesn't, and Hitchcock does that really well. And just the pacing of the revelations felt very Hitchcock inspired to me, more so than plenty of other modern thrillers, which go for more crazy wild ending twists. Like Saltburn, the one I shouted out earlier, like piles on twists to the ending, which is fun. I like twist endings a lot. But I think to answer the question you raised a while ago, I think this did the revelation at the right time, because I think it sets the right amount of tension for the rest of the movie. I will say that thinking too much about Hitchcock, especially when I watched it again, you can tell that Sweeney is more used to making drama and comedy films. There's lots of like little things you could do. Like Hitchcock would love to like zoom in on something really small and use it to kind of like dilate space and time in ways that I just felt like there maybe could have been one extra gear of suspense filmmaking here. That said, I absolutely love this movie. I really do. It's going to be in my top 10 of 2025. I don't think it's quite a masterpiece for reasons I've already said. But I have this in exceptionally good. I think this is a 7 out of 8. I think Dylan O'Brien is a pretty solid lock to be in my top 5 performances of the year. I do my little mini fake Oscars where I choose my own nominees and winner for the best performances of the year. He'll be in my best actor slate, and if I were to do it today, he would probably be my winner. I think he just acts the crap out of it and like brings such depth to this character. And he has a couple of like Oscar reel type scenes where he like, particularly the one that I talked about where he's like talking to Dennis as if Dennis is Rocky, and like bringing more life to this complicated history he had with his twin is just a brilliant piece of acting. And that he plays a double role is so good. I think that's terrific. I just think it's a very clever story where like things happen. Like so many stories, movies of the Sundance ilk are like I said at the beginning, are well observed. Like, but things don't really happen. Like maybe there's an incident, but it doesn't feel like a story told to be a rich narrative. Whereas this is a rich narrative. A lot happens, and you still get a little bit of that like character portrait dramedy vibe. It's kind of cringy. I like it. I think it's the right amount of cringy. I think it needs some bite in movies like this. So I think that's great. It is very attractive. I did notice more Wes Anderson the second time through, particularly having seen the first, where he does a lot of the symmetry and the kind of precise coloring. But it's obviously not like artistry on the level of what Anderson does, but it's a very visually pleasing film. Like I always enjoyed looking at it. And yeah, that split screen, frame to frame, remerging thing, very cool. The last thing I'll say about it is, so the Dennis character spends the bulk of this movie trying not to get outed for his secret to Roman. Well, maybe this is obvious, maybe it isn't, but it really struck me the second time I was watching this movie is this is kind of a mirror of a coming out story. When you have some secret about yourself that you have trouble sharing with the world, about some inner truth that others you fear they won't accept. And it's obviously not a one-to-one, like that would be problematic, but I think the tensions with which this kind of plays with, I have this inner secret self, but to me it's real, but I don't know if other people are going to get it. And also like the same way that people kind of react viscerally negatively to it, kind of has an old fashioned coming out story vibe to it that again, it's not too on the nose, but I don't know. I think has some richness and some it's very personal for James Sweeney. So James Sweeney, just a tremendously talented writer, a strong director. He's on my radar now. I'm going to be looking out for more movies by James Sweeney after Twinless. I agree with you, Brian. I think he is an up and coming talent. And yeah, so thanks to Brennan for putting this on my radar. And I am glad we got to talk about it, Brian. So, Brian, what are we going to be watching for next week?
Well, Dan, we're closing in on Thanksgiving already. The weeks fly by. And so I wanted to cover a film that I associate with Thanksgiving for reasons that we'll talk about when we record. But around this time of year, I often also select Tim Burton picks. Films directed by Tim Burton. So what I want to talk about is Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Tim Burton's adaptation of the Stephen Sondheim musical from 2007. The film came out. You ever seen this one?
Yeah, I saw the movie one time. I forget exactly when. I think around college or shortly after college. Well, when did it come out?
2007.
Okay, so I could have seen it in college, but I haven't seen it since. So I'm looking forward to watching it again, Brian.
Cool. Yeah, I like this one. I think it'll be fun. And I've got a lot of talking points. So I hope you join us again, listeners.
Oh, and Brian, on the goods spreadsheet, I would probably put thriller. That would be what I put for the genre. Drama, comedy, thriller. I don't know. You could do any of those, I think.
Okay. I don't think we've ever listed something as a thriller before, but we'll do what makes sense.
You could do drama.
Drama. Sounds good.
Alrighty. Well, I will see you next week, Brian, to discuss Sweeney Todd.
Looking forward to it, Dan. Talk to you soon.